little hands.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Cheongi. This is the 6th month and the 14th day on the heavenly calendar. Let's start with the weather. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And the weather in the Cheongguk area right now is rain. It's rainy, 68 degrees. And the rain's going to continue for almost another hour. And then it may continue, maybe a little bit more rain, around 7, 8, 9 o'clock, but then maybe a thunderstorm around then. But then later in the day, it's going to be partly cloudy, and so it'll be clearing up. We'll have a sun, and should get up to 80 degrees today. It's a little bit cooler than it has been in the past, and in the afternoon, the humidity shouldn't be so bad either. All right, let's go now to Rima for this day. The Bible, I'm in Ezekiel, chapter 22. Chapter 22 in the beginning here. Now, thou son of man, I'm starting with verse 2. Now, thou son of man, wilt thou judge the bloody city? Yea, thou shalt show her all her abominations. Then say thou, Thus saith the Lord God, the city sheddeth blood in the midst of it, that her time may come and maketh idols against herself to defile herself. And in the Cheonseonggyeong, I'm in the book on True Parents, the second chapter, page 193. And Father says, on this earth, Jesus had to physically go through the course of restoring the position of the son. Spiritually, he had to go through the course of restoring the position of the parent. He had thus to fulfill his responsibility in both positions and establish the starting point of becoming one with God. Okay. I'd like to talk about this Rima actually in connection with a story that is in the USA Today. Coming out of Guam. Shattered faith. Nearly 100 sex abuse suits against Catholic priests rock the island of Guam. I actually chose these Rimas after I came across this story, and it's very interesting to me that it seems that the Bible talks about abominations and judging the bloody city, and also the Cheonseonggyeong talks about Jesus' responsibility to establish the position of the son and of the parent. And here we have this story in the USA Today about in this island of Guam, a very small area where nearly 100 sex abuse suits have been brought against Catholic priests, and that story appearing in the USA Today. The editor's note here, some details in this report, while important to the understanding of the story, are graphic. Also, the USA Today network does not identify alleged sexual abuse victims who do not wish to come forward. And with that, the story coming out of Hagaenya, Guam, says, it started off innocently, a 15-year-old boy helping out at San Miguel, a local church named for Archangel Michael, the leader of all angels. There was yard work and cleaning, followed by invitations to the rectory to eat and watch TV. Soon there were offers to drink sacramental wine and watch X-rated movies, then sexual assault. More than 50 times over 3 years by the parish priest. Those jarring allegations came from a recent lawsuit claiming assault from 1985 to 1988. It is one of nearly 100 lawsuits that describe rampant child sexual abuse by some of Guam's most revered men, the Catholic clergy. An investigation by the USA Today Network's Pacific Daily News unearthed allegations of decades of assault, manipulation, and intimidation of children reared on this remote, predominantly Catholic U.S. territory. Among the accusations, a boy fondled on the way to his grandmother's burial, and another molested for the first time on his 7th birthday, then raped or assaulted more than 100 times. The children's steadfast faith in the island's priests made them vulnerable. The lawsuits say, accuser William Payne's parents had raised him to honor and respect the priest, and told him that he had to do what the priest told him to do, according to his lawsuit. He had been instilled with the belief that clergy are never wrong, and that the clergy were like Jesus. The lawsuits and other public statements collectively claim that priests preyed on children for nearly 4 decades, with allegations of wrongdoing reaching the highest levels of the Guam Catholic hierarchy. Archbishop Anthony Aperon, 13 Guam priests, and others, including a Catholic school teacher, a Catholic school janitor, and a Boy Scout leader, are alleged to be sexual predators. Guam's Archdiocese of Agana is a defendant in 96 lawsuits. The complaints detail alleged attacks from 1955 through 1994 and claim some religious leaders knew of the exploitation and ignored it. One retired priest who admitted in an affidavit that he sexually abused 20 or more boys still receives a monthly stipend from the Archdiocese. The accusations also ensnare the Boy Scouts of America, where that priest also served as a scoutmaster. The scouting group is named as a co-defendant in 52 lawsuits. While clergy abuse is well documented elsewhere in the U.S. and in cities around the world, even as the subject of the Academy Award-winning movie Spotlight, a similar pattern of allegations in Guam has gone largely unnoticed outside this tiny island. The accusations only recently caught the attention of the Vatican. In June 2016, Pope Francis suspended Aperon, who has since been accused in 4 lawsuits of sexually abusing 4 altar boys in the 1970s. The Vatican is now trying him in a secret procedure that could lead to him being dismissed from the clergy, also known as being laicized. Aperon is among the highest-ranking church officials to be tried by the Vatican for sexual wrongdoings. Aperon has denied the abuse charges via statements on video and through written statements issued by the Archdiocese. His attorney has filed motions to dismiss lawsuits against him. Aperon's Vatican trial is, quote, very, very rare, and the reason it's rare is because the Vatican or the popes have protected the bishops, unquote, says Dominican priest Tom Doyle, a specialist in canon or church law who advocates for abuse victims. They consider them to be the most important part of the church, so they protect them, no matter what they've done, unquote. Complaints against the Boy Scouts say the group ignored the priest abuse and enabled clergy to prey on young boys. At times, the church required Guam altar boys join the Boy Scouts, and Boy Scouts were encouraged to serve in the church, according to the lawsuits. The Guam lawsuits join in a steady stream of accusations against Catholic clergy. In June, Pope Francis' aide Cardinal George Pell was charged with historical sexual offenses by authorities in his native Australia. Pell denied the charges in a Vatican news conference. And I think he has since returned to Australia, and I believe that that trial situation is ongoing in Australia. The Boston scandal is one of the most high-profile examples of clergy abuse. In 2003, there was a $85 million settlement of 552 lawsuits against the Boston Archdiocese involving more than 150 priests. Yet Guam's sexual abuse controversy appears to have seeped more deeply into its smaller community. There are more than 4.7 million people in the greater Boston area, while the population of Guam, an island about 3,800 miles west of Hawaii, is fewer than 63,000 people. Per capita, that's 12 lawsuits per 100,000 in Boston, compared with 59 lawsuits per 100,000 in Guam. Indeed, the accusations touch the personal and professional lives of many here. All 8 of Guam's trial court judges, for instance, have recused themselves from at least some lawsuits, saying they have familial or business ties to either the plaintiffs or the defendants, court documents show. The deluge of Guam abuse claims arrived after lawmakers passed a bill in September 2016 retroactively eliminating the statute of limitations for civil lawsuits involving child sexual abuse. The criminal statute of limitations was lifted in 2011, but can't be applied retroactively. Attorneys for the Archdiocese, Puron, and the Boy Scouts, as well as two accused clergy members, retired Saipan Bishop Thomas Camacho and the Reverend David Anderson, have filed motions to dismiss the lawsuits, arguing that the law lifting the statute of limitations for civil claims in child sexual abuse cases is unconstitutional. As of late July, some of the defendants had not been served with legal papers and had not filed responses, according to court records. The Archdiocese has said it takes all allegations very seriously. We care deeply about every person who steps forward, and we look forward to a full resolution of all cases, the Archdiocese said in a July 28th news release. The Vatican didn't reply to requests for comment. The Boy Scouts deeply regrets that there have been times when Scouts were abused, unquote, and has developed safeguards such as not allowing a leader to be alone with a child, Scout Aloha Council CEO Jeff Sulzbach said in a statement. The lawsuits filed in the District Court of Guam and the Superior Court of Guam claim pervasive incidents of abuse dotted through everyday island life. Some examples of the allegations. In the 1970s, Puron molested Roy Tate Quintanilla, I guess you pronounce that, then 12, and raped Walter Denton, then 13, according to Quintanilla's and Denton's respective lawsuits. Both Quintanilla and Denton said they spoke separately with priest Jack Nyland about the alleged abuse. In a 2015 letter to the Vatican, Denton said that after he and another former altar boy told Nyland that Puron raped him, Nyland told them, "Well, boys, priesthood is a very lonely life." Nyland, now deceased, was accused of child molestation in a separate lawsuit. In 1988, then-priest Raymond Cepeda threw Timothy Ryan Shuroma, then around age 9, to a basilica office floor and got on top of him, according to Shuroma's lawsuit. When Shuroma began to cry, Cepeda allegedly unzipped a backpack, pushed Shuroma's head inside, and sexually molested him. A separate lawsuit filed by a man identified as BBJ said that in 1982, Cepeda officiated a funeral mass for his grandmother, then fondled him during the car ride to the cemetery. Cepeda, who was defrocked in 2009 amid sexual abuse allegations, could not be reached for comment and has not filed a legal response. Between 1985 and 1988, then-priest Andrew Manetta is said to have sexually assaulted a victim identified only as NQ in his lawsuit in his rectory adjacent to San Miguel Church. Manetta, who was removed from the clergy in 2002 amid abuse allegations, could not be reached for comment, and no response to the lawsuit has been filed. Priest Ray Teixeira allegedly molested a plaintiff identified only as J.A. on the day J.A. turned 7 in 1984. J.A. claims Teixeira then gave him $20 and said what happened should be kept a secret. Teixeira, who is now deceased, went on to rape or molest J.A. more than 100 times, according to the lawsuit. No response to the lawsuit has been filed. Priest and Scoutmaster Louis Brulard is claimed to have raped and molested a victim identified only as A.N.D. during Boy Scout Summer Jamboree campouts in 1974 and 75, starting the abuse when A.N.D. was about 11. A.N.D. also says in his lawsuit that two other Scout leaders then took turns raping him after he told Briand was going to report him. after he told Birond he was going to report him. Birond, a priest on Guam from 1948 to 1981, has been named as an abuser in 55 lawsuits. He admitted in an affidavit in October 2016 that he sexually abused 20 or more boys on the island. The affidavit and exhibit in some of the lawsuits was obtained by an investigator who went to Briand's home in Minnesota. The investigator was hired by David Lujan, the attorney for 75 plaintiffs in the church lawsuits. Briand said in an affidavit that fellow clergy, including then Bishop Baumgartner, who is now dead, knew of his actions and told him to try to do better and to say prayers as penance. Reached by the Pacific Daily News by phone after he was named as an abuser in a Guam legislature hearing last summer, Briand said it's possible he abused altar boys on the island. Briand hasn't filed a legal response and couldn't be reached for additional comment. The Archdiocese of Agana still provides Briand 96 with a monthly stipend of $550. Catholicism has long been an integral part of life on this western Pacific island. Since the 17th century, Catholic churches have been the center of village activities, proclaims the Guam Visitors Bureau on a website describing the culture of its native Chamorro population. About 85% of its residents are Catholic, populating 26 parishes on an island just 30 miles long. Extreme reverence for church leadership, paired with Guam's remote location, left abused children geographically trapped with few places to go for help, says Jolie Castiex, a volunteer regional director of the support group Survivors Network of those abused by priests, known as SNAP, S-N-A-P. Survivors Network of those abused by priests, SNAP. Priests use their clout to gain access to the boys, as well as to keep their victims quiet, according to many of the lawsuits. One accuser, described in his lawsuit only as SAF, said that in 1975, Briand told him, "If you tell anyone, no one will believe you because I am a priest." In some cases, they were told that sexual acts were penance or were needed to earn Boy Scout badges, according to the lawsuits. Some accusers say they were too terrified to tell their devout parents, while others told adults but weren't believed, according to the lawsuits. Quote, "I thought about it a million times, but I was scared to tell them, especially my mom," unquote, a man identified only as RB in his lawsuit told the Pacific Daily News in a phone interview. Quote, "She's a die-hard Catholic. If I tell her a priest did that to me, I don't think she would believe me," unquote. In at least 2 lawsuits, accusers said the abuse was reported to local police decades ago. However, the Guam Police Department recently said that it has no record of the reports, which would not have been retained because the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution passed long ago. Even as adults, victims feared discussing what happened, said SNAP's Castier, who came to Guam in 2009 to follow up on a call she received from an accuser. Quote, "I was told outright that victims were scared that they would be shunned from their families, kicked out of the church, lose their jobs, or by speaking out against the church or Aperon, they would threaten the financial security of their loved ones," unquote, she says. Some were even concerned their phones might be tapped, she says. Quote, no one wanted to be seen with me, not even the tipster who initially called me," unquote, she says. Quote, "I was told that the church was the most powerful entity on the island, outside of the military. Messing with Aperon was wrong, was worse than messing with God," unquote. Aperon 71 wielded much influence. He, as Archbishop, had immense power, says Guam Legislature Speaker Benjamin Cruz, a former judge and Guam Supreme Court Justice. Aperon, the second native Chamorro Archbishop and once an altar boy himself, led the Catholic faithful here for 3 decades. He officiated thousands of masses, baptisms, weddings, and funerals, and positioned himself as a fierce defender of morality, local culture, and tradition. When quote, Father Tony, unquote, was the pastor, families considered it a source of pride to have their sons serve as altar boys. He readily used his stature as spiritual leader to help shape political decisions. In one instance, he threatened to excommunicate any Catholic lawmaker who voted against a measure that outlawed all abortions except when necessary to save the life of the mother. Yet in recent years, Aperon faced detractors who criticized him for how he handled church real estate and finances. In December 2014, disgruntled civic leaders formed Concerned Catholics of Guam, a non-profit group that called for greater financial transparency from the Archdiocese and for Aperon's resignation. In May 2016, Concerned Catholics ran a full-page ad in a local newspaper, including the Pacific Daily News, urging sexual abuse victims to come forward. The ad listed specific dates and locations, each corresponding to Aperon's service dates and parishes. Concerned Catholics President David Sablan says the ads were placed at the request of local Catholic issues blogger Tim Rohr, who had encouraged clergy sex abuse victims to come forward via a post on his Jungle Watch blog. Rohr says he posted that blog item after he spoke with three of Aperon's accusers, Quintanilla, Denton, and Roland Sondia. Like Quintanilla and Denton, Sondia, who is an employee of the Pacific Daily News, has filed a sexual abuse lawsuit against Aperon, the Archbishop, and others. 9 days after the Concerned Catholics ad came out, Quintanilla held a news conference to accuse Aperon of molesting him. Then Doris Concepcion, the mother of former altar boy Joseph Sonny Quinata, said in an interview with the Pacific Daily News that soon before Quinata died, he told her Aperon abused him. The estate of Quinata also has filed a lawsuit against Aperon, the Archdiocese, and others. On June 6, 2016, Pope Francis stripped Aperon of his administrative authority and installed a temporary apostolic administrator in Guam. Aperon said the appointment was made at his request. The Holy Father has understood the importance of establishing the truth and will allow an independent investigation of those false allegations to proceed, he said on a video released by the Archdiocese. Wait a second, what does that say? An independent investigation of these false allegations? I guess the conclusion to that independent investigation is already out, huh? In October, the Pope appointed Archbishop Michael Burns of Detroit to run the Guam Archdiocese. He is designated as Aperon's eventual successor. The Vatican Tribunal's discovery phase of Aperon's trial has ended, and a group of judges are deliberating on his fate. Last week, a federal judge agreed to temporarily halt proceedings in most of the clergy's sex abuse lawsuits so they can go through an out-of-court settlement process. The church's financial arm has identified dozens of its island properties that could be sold to help finance the settlements. The church also has set up a Hope and Healing Guam initiative to provide counseling for victims. Aperon still officially holds the title of Archbishop. Some lawsuit plaintiffs say the alleged abuse damaged their spirituality, and at least one abandoned the Catholic Church. Yet many retained their religious beliefs. After the first group of former altar boys filed suit late last year, plaintiff's attorney Lujan said the men hope and pray that the church flourishes for another 2,000 years. On the island, resident May Reyes Ada, 74, says she sometimes feels embarrassed and guilty that she did not speak up when she first heard rumors of clergy abuse in the 1970s. The mentality at the time was you don't say anything bad about the church and the priests, she says, adding she didn't have proof. We should have and we could have done something a long time ago, says Ada, who joined the peaceful protests to have Aperon permanently removed from the clergy. Despite the scandal, she says, her religious conviction has only intensified. The church is going through purging and cleansing, she says. It takes somebody with a strong faith to fight this war. And one young island resident, born after the alleged abuse that took place, stands ready to make sure the church flourishes. I'm here to help these people in their fight against the evils that have infiltrated our church, Jaden Cameron, 14, said during a July protest to have Apiron removed. Jaden Cameron's a 14-year-old boy, and his aspiration is to become a priest. As young people, we are the future of the church, he says. It's our responsibility, especially when we were baptized in the faith, to come and help. So the USA Today has this long story on this very shocking development in Guam, where nearly 100 sex abuse suits have been brought against Catholic priests on the island of Guam. And on a per capita basis, it's more than 4 times as many suits as what happened in Boston on a per capita population basis. The king has ruled that if a blessed family member who is that is under a father's authority takes the communion wine in the Catholic Church, that this act will have the same effect as committing a sexual fall. The Catholic Church is an evil organization. It has become an evil organization. And those who are under True Father's authority must not take part in the communion ritual in that organization. Those who do will have to go through the change of blood lineage ceremony again, the whole process again, starting with taking the holy wine, 40-day separation, the holy marriage blessing, 3-day ceremony, and so forth, indemnity stick. It's really shocking, not surprising, but shocking nonetheless, that this kind of abuse situation took place in Guam. The remoteness of the island, the power wielded by the Catholic clergy make it not surprising. The way in which the worldwide Catholic Church has become an evil sexual abuse organization makes it not surprising. And yet it is still shocking. It is still shocking. The way that Satan continues to work in the world, and especially through this organization set up by Jesus. Jesus said that he would build his church with Peter as the foundation, Peter meaning the rock. And Jesus' hope was that this organization would, that this church would lay the foundation for his second coming. But it has become so infused with evil, Taking a look at the history of celibacy in the Catholic Church. In the beginning, priests in the early church were not required to be celibate. Peter was not celibate. Paul, of course, in Corinthians, describes himself as being celibate. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 8 through 9, He says, "To the unmarried and the widows I say that it is well for them to remain single as I do. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to be aflame with passion." Paul wanted to maintain his celibacy or his purity until Jesus would return. And I think Paul thought it quite possible that Jesus would return within his lifetime. And so he wanted to maintain his purity, and he encouraged others to do so if it was possible. But if they couldn't exercise self-control, then he encouraged them to go ahead and get married. Because even as married couples, people could receive the holy blessing of the Messiah after he returned. People in the early church really expected Jesus to return any day. And so they were preserving themselves in that way. And there were, according to this article that I'm reading now on the history of celibacy in the Catholic Church, the first written mandate requiring priests to be chaste came in AD 304. Canon 33 of the Council of Elvira stated that all bishops, presbyters, and deacons and all other clerics were to abstain completely from their wives and not to have children. But a short time later, in 325, the Council of Nicaea, convened by Constantine, rejected a ban on priests marrying that was requested by the Spanish clerics. The church was 1,000 years old before it definitively took a stand in favor of celibacy in the 12th century at the Second Lateran Council held in 1139, when a rule was approved forbidding priests to marry. In 1563, the Council of Trent reaffirmed the tradition of celibacy, and it's based on the Council of Trent that the current Catholic Church continues to require priests to take a vow of celibacy. They take the vow, but that's just words. That's just words. The actions are different. And the Catholic Church distinguishes between dogma and regulations. The male-only priesthood is a Catholic dogma, irreversible by papal decree. The ban on marriage is considered a regulation, and that means the Pope can change it overnight if he wishes. We'll come back after a short break, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. See you in a minute.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Cheonryuk, Hyungjin Moon. In the previous segment, we read a story in the U.S. News and World Report about a very serious situation on the island of Guam, where nearly 100 sexual abuse lawsuits have been brought against the Catholic clergy and a scoutmaster who was also a priest. And this follows on our Rima this morning from Ezekiel 22, verse 2. Now, thou son of man, wilt thou judge the bloody city? Yea, thou shalt show her all her abominations. Certainly the abominations of the Catholic Church are coming to light more and more. But my concern, though, is that this is not just a problem of the Catholic Church. My concern is that something similar may be going on somewhere in some places in the Family Federation. On Guam, we read how one reason that this has been kept quiet for so long is that the Catholic Church exercised such a power in that remote community. If people were to speak out against the church, they faced the possibility of losing their jobs, of being excommunicated from the church, of their family members being shunned by the community. That's exactly what's happening in the Family Federation, isn't it? The Family Federation has demonstrated that if anyone associates themselves with the Sanctuary Church, they will be excommunicated from the church. They will lose their church positions and jobs. There are economic and consequences in that way. This is especially happening in Japan, where when someone is found to be attending the Sanctuary Church, the Family Federation pastor or regional leader will send out a letter to all their members saying that this person is to be shunned and you must have no more communication with them. And if that person has a job in the Family Federation, they are immediately fired from that position. And so they immediately are put into economic difficulty. And the Family Federation uses this power to keep their people in line. And where there is that kind of power, there is also corruption. And there is definitely a possibility of sexual abuse going on in that context, where this kind of power is being exercised not only against those who associate with the Sanctuary Church, but also those who refuse sexual advances by the Family Federation clergy. It's very possible. I have not heard any rumors of that. I have no evidence of that. But it would be surprising if that is not going on, because we know that wherever there is power, there is corruption, and we see in the Catholic Church a pattern where that kind of corruption can lead. So if there are victims of sexual abuse in the Family Federation, I hope that they will speak out. And I hope that we can provide a venue in which such people can speak out safely. Also, the problem with Guam was that it was a very remote community, and many of our people are in. Although sometimes we are in large population centers, but we are very isolated because our faith is very different from others, and also because over the decades, the Unification Church members have become sort of shunned by society in general, in many cases, especially in Japan. To say that you're a Unification Church member is basically, you may as well turn in your resignation right then if you're working for an outside company, and we talk in terms of outside and inside, don't we? So even if we are living in large population centers, we are still very isolated. And again, that isolation can be used by those who are in power and who seek to abuse subordinates and young people younger than themselves sexually. That is my fear. I fear for those who are vulnerable within the Family Federation. And we see also in Guam how this 14-year-old boy and the 71-year-old woman say that, this is a part of a cleansing and purging of the church, that these abuse cases are coming to light and so forth. But this goes far beyond that in the Catholic Church, and I've in the same way, this illustrates how it is once an organization takes hold and takes on a life of its own, it's extremely difficult to get rid of that organization, even when it is demonstrably evil. And the same is true of the Family Federation. People want to preserve the organization at all costs because they are so invested in it. They cannot imagine their lives as separate from the organization. That's the case in Guam, and that's the case for many people in the Family Federation that I've spoken to. And that is where then abuse and corruption can come in again, and where that kind of commitment to the organization can be used against people. This young boy, 14 years old, who wants to become a priest. He may become an abuse victim or an abuser over the next decades. Organizations are very fearful things. They really take on a life of their own. They become monsters in many ways. I remember one Korean leader who complained to me. He said that once when a father will give someone a mission, give a leader a mission, but then, or he was talking about his own situation, give someone a mission, but then as soon as I start to create an organization to fulfill that mission, Father starts to undermine that organization, he said. Specifically, this person was saying Father would not respect the chain of command, in his opinion. Father would speak to people who were in the middle of that organization, in the middle of the chain of command, speak to them directly and give them instructions that sometimes went against what the person at the top of the chain of command was doing. But Father understood the danger of organizations, and he saw people establishing organizations, but he always sought to undermine those organizations, undermine the chain of command of those organizations. I think that was a very interesting thing that Father was always doing. But organizations are a dangerous thing. We must always be ready to toss out an organization if it is not serving the purpose for which it was established. The Family Federation obviously is one organization. It is that is no longer serving its purpose. It was established to testify to True Father. It was established to spread His word. It was established to attend Him, but it has betrayed Him, and it is no longer spreading His word. In fact, it has changed and corrupted His word, and it is holding people in captivity, threatening them with economic sanctions and religious sanctions and social sanctions if they dare to leave the organization or dare to turn against it and go to Sanctuary Church. This is an organization that clearly needs to be eliminated. The organization needs to be eliminated, not the faith. And the faith is separate from the organization. When I told my father after I left the Unification Church, I called him my father. He's been, he's a minister in the Methodist Church, and so he's had difficulty with my faith for a long, long time. And so I called him up and said, "Good news, Dad. I left the Unification Church, but my faith hasn't changed." So the first part was good news for him, but he was a little bit disappointed. But he respects me. He respects my faith, and I am grateful to him for that. But really, my faith did not change when I left the Unification Church, when I left the Family Federation. And it has not changed today. And that is important because the organization does not determine the faith, and the faith is not dependent on the organization. And I hope people if anyone in the Family Federation is secretly listening to this broadcast under your covers or in the secrecy of your toilet or wherever, I hope you will consider that your faith, you do not sacrifice your faith when you leave the Family Federation. All right. I don't know if that's the best way that we wanted to begin our Saturday morning, but it's important. It's important. As Ezekiel says, we are now showing her all her abominations. The Family Federation needs to see its abominations. The Catholic Church, the people in the Catholic Church need to see the abominations of the Church. People who are in the Family Federation need to see the abominations of the Family Federation. People who are in Islam need to see the abominations of Islam. Again, there too. An evil, well, it's more than an organization there with Islam. It's actually the faith that's the problem. And Jesus' mission was to establish the role of the son and of the parent. And that is what we must do in these cases. Because sexual abuse is an instance of where the role of the parent is twisted and misused, because it is a person who is in the position of power. In other words, a person who is in the position of a parent who abuses the person who is in the position of the child. That must not be allowed to go on. And if it is occurring in the Family Federation, I hope the victims will speak out and speak out quickly. And I hope we can all provide a venue in which those people can speak out. It takes great courage to do so, and we hope that we can allow those people to speak. We'll come back now with other news after this short break.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th of 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for Youngjin Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Wow, after that very heavy beginning, we need a couple of animal stories to get things sort of back on keel here. And now I understand, I guess, why Drudge keeps putting animal stories on his list of links. Here's one he has. Aggressive mountain goats in Olympic National Park, how to help decide their fate. Concerned over aggressive behavior and environmental impacts of hundreds of salt-sucking mountain goats, Olympic National Park officials are considering relocating some and killing others. The goats are too gruff. Concerned over aggressive behavior and environmental impacts of hundreds of salt-sucking mountain goats, Olympic National Park officials are considering options to deal with the problematic ungulates, Plans include capturing mountain goats and relocating them to North Cascades National Forests, killing the goats with shotguns or rifles fired from helicopters, a combination of those options, or continuing present policy. Park officials now follow an action plan for aggressive goats that includes tracking interactions, closing areas where goats follow people, hazing goats, and even killing some goats that are aggressive and unresponsive to hazing. Going forward, the park favors capturing as many goats as possible before eliminating those determined to be uncatchable, according to an environmental impact statement that outlines the park's options. Carcasses of killed goats, quote, would be left on the landscape, unquote. The population of goats unable to be caught or killed would be too small for mountain goats to rebound, the impact statement says. A park survey in 2016 estimated that 625 mountain goats live in the park. Populations have risen about 8% each year on average since 2004, according to the impact statement. In 2010, a mountain goat known to be troublesome gored and killed a 63-year-old man, then stood over his body and stared other hikers down, according to a witness. The killing reinvigorated park discussions about how to manage mountain goats. The Park Service believes mountain goats are not native to the Olympic Peninsula. Park officials in the 1980s removed hundreds of goats by helicopter and considered eradicating the goat population by shooting mountain goats in the 1990s before public outcry from animal rights supporters tabled that idea. Park officials are hosting 4 open houses about the mountain goat management plan, including one at the Seattle Public Library at 5 p.m. on August 17th. Okay. Let's try another one. Boy finds skunk in his bed. Boy finds skunk in his bed. A Connecticut boy got an unpleasant surprise when he awoke to find his skunk in his bed. Hamden police say the 13-year-old was awoken in his upstairs bedroom by a skunk, which had climbed into bed with him. Police say the skunk apparently got into the home when it climbed through a hole in a trash can that a resident brought inside. Climbed through a hole in a trash can, and a resident brought it inside. It's not clear how the skunk found its way into the boy's bed, but no one was happy about the outcome. Hamden Animal Control Division responded to a call about 6 a.m. on July 25th. Police say the animal control officer arrived to the poignant smell of skunk, which emanated throughout the house. The family got the animal out of the house on their own. The family got the animal out of the house on their own. Yeah, I would have liked to have had a little more detail on that. But, all right. Let's start going through the more serious news now. Not that goats aren't serious, but yeah. Anyway, let's see here. I want to do this. AT&T, yes. The top story on a Drudge is the report that the AT&T may sell CNN and TNZ. AT&T experts, let's see here. There are rumblings at the highest executive levels that AT&T's top executives are considering divesting some of Time Warner assets, including news organization CNN and celebrity gossip site TMZ, after they merge. AT&T expects the Justice Department to approve its $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner and for the deal to close by year-end. The telco has already named longtime exec John Stankey to be CEO of AT&T's media operations. He's leading the Time Warner merger integration planning team, working with Time Warner CEO Jeff Bewkes. So AT&T is going to buy Time Warner, which owns CNN. So AT&T is going to own CNN for a short time, but then it sounds like they want to sell it off. And guess who wants to buy it? CBS. has long had its eye on CNN. The broadcast company's CEO, Les Moonves, said at Herb Allen's Sun Valley retreat last month that he would be interested if the cable news network became available. Neither CBS nor AT&T would comment. Selling CNN might help avoid a different kind of controversy for AT&T. President Donald Trump loathes the news network. That could be troublesome for telco CEO Randall Stephenson. His company frequently does business with the FCC, now controlled by Trump appointees. AT&T was one of the largest donors to Trump's inaugural committee, giving $2 million in cash contributions and $82,483 in in-kind donations for mobile equipment, software according to The Hill. Last year, Stevenson personally donated $50,000 to the Senate Leadership Fund, a super PAC controlled by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, as well as $11,000 to the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, according to filings compiled by the Center for Responsive Politics. In October, shortly after agreeing to buy Time Warner, Stevens said he's committed to continuing the editorial independence of CNN. Independence is what makes CNN so popular and so valuable. We will do nothing to change that. This would be a good time to sell CNN. News networks are enjoying some of their best ratings ever as the public feasts on daily updates about the Trump administration. CNN recently had its most watched Q2 ever, second quarter ever. Time Warner doesn't offer financials for individual networks, but this week the company cited CNN's strong performance as a factor that helped to lift Q2 revenues at the Turner Networks operation by 3% to $3.1 billion in an otherwise difficult quarter for cable channels. CNN generated about $1.3 billion in revenue and $416 million in cash flow in 2016, S&P Global Market Intelligence's SNL Kagan estimated. That does not include companion networks such as CNN en Español and CNN International. CNN would enable CBS News to expand its international reach and distribution. Last month, CBS replaced ABC in a news gathering and sharing alliance with BBC. CBS had been in a similar arrangement with Sky, which is awaiting UK approval for a deal to sell its 21st Century Fox. To Fox. Blending CBS News with CNN would enable the company to cut duplication and develop additional opportunities to showcase its journalists and their work. That strategy appears to be working at Comcast's NBC Universal, where people and programs frequently cross between NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, and Telemundo. But Moonves might have to work to sell CBS shareholders on the merits of buying a cable channel. The business is widely seen as in decline as pay TV subscriptions decline. That was one reason many CBS shareholders were relieved last year when Sumner and Sherry Redstone scrapped the idea of merging the network with Viacom. The Redstones' National Amusement controls about 80% of the voting shares in both companies. Moonves said at the time that he's very happy with the way we are as a standalone company and was able to play the game just fine. So this article is saying that AT&T is about to purchase the company that owns CNN. And then when it does that, it's thinking of maybe rumors are that AT&T may want to sell CNN. It doesn't want to keep it, wants to sell it off, and that CBS is interested in buying CNN if it becomes available, according to its head guy. And it has it might have some benefits for CBS if it does that. Cut duplication and develop additional opportunities to showcase its journalists. Can we take a break right now? I have a emergency on my computer battery. Let's take a break now.
At break of day in
Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Carr Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Jeonniguk, Hyungjin Moon. And we were talking before the break about ATT buying Time Warner, which owns CNN. And then once ATT becomes the owner of CNN and wants to sell it, well, it looks like, and CBS may be interested in buying it. So we may be looking at ATT says that they can probably finish their deal with Time Warner by the end of this year. So perhaps during in the beginning of next year, or end of this year, beginning of next year, we may find that CNN and CBS are one company. And that looks like it's going to be happening in the next few months, depending, of course, on the shareholders of a CBS, whether they want that to happen or not. But before we go on to another story, I wanted to make the point that under the Jeonniguk Constitution, none of this is happening, all right? Because under the Jeonniguk Constitution, a news organization such as CNN cannot be owned by a corporation. It must be owned by individuals. And that is another way in which the Jeonniguk Constitution disperses power. The Jeonniguk Constitution is about dispersing power, and the reason for that is so that sovereignty can lie in families. Sovereignty can lie in families. The power is not in the government. It is not in the military. It is not in the financial and banking sector. It is not in the media. It is in the families. It is in the families. And here, talking about why ATT would not want to own CNN, it talks about how the ATT has to work with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, and a lot of the members of that commission have been appointed by Trump, and so they don't want to ruffle Trump's feathers by owning a news organization that he hates, and that says here that ATT contributed $2 million to the Trump's campaign, something like that, and again, going into all the money that ATT and its CEO have donated to the Trump organization or to the Trump campaign. And again, here, this illustrates the role that money plays in politics in today's society. And the Jeonniguk Constitution minimizes that. I won't say we'll have to wait and see if it eliminates it, but at least it certainly minimizes it to an incredible degree. I would say more than 99%, because each member of the House of Representatives will represent a population of 2,100, and so the House of Representatives is going to be very, very large. But also, if you think about it, 2,100 in today's America, about 2/3 of the population are eligible to vote, or of a voting age, let's say, are of voting age, 2/3. So if we apply that same ratio to 2,100, that means that out of 2,100 population, 1,400 would be old enough to vote, would be eligible to vote. Voting age, not eligible, but voting age. So in any particular election for a member of the House, 1,400 people are eligible to vote. I don't know how many people are going to register. I don't know how many people are going to go to the polls. But let's assume that 100% register and 100% go to the polls, all right? Then that means that you only need 700 votes to get elected, half of 1,400, 700 to get elected. And it could be a lot less than that probably if not 100% go to the polls, not 100% are voting, then it could be less than 700. But the idea then is that a candidate then can get elected just by the support of the people he knows directly. How many friends do you have on Facebook? Many people have more than 700 friends on Facebook. Not that they necessarily know all of them, all right, but let's say in a church congregation, already you have a few hundred of people that you know right there, and people who know you, and in your local community clubs, or if a person is serving the community the way that a politician should, then he probably has 700 people who respect him enough that they will vote for him. So then, where does the money come in then? TV ads, newspaper ads, polling, these kinds of places where money is being spent now will all become unnecessary, will become obsolete. And so the money, the role of money in politics will go way, way down in terms of the House election. And then, of course, in the presidential election, in the Cheongguk Constitution, the president is not elected by popular vote. He's elected by the House of Representatives in a election that occurs over a very short period of time, a relatively short period of time, perhaps a day or two or a few days. The way it happens is that any person with who has a support of 10 members of the House is automatically a candidate, and then you have one round of voting, and if no one gets 50%, then the top 7 go to the second round, and then each round after that, the bottom vote getter gets eliminated until you have someone who has a 50% of the vote, one vote over 50%, I guess, 50%, a majority of the vote. And so because this takes place with beginning with a large number of candidates and over a short period of time, because once the voting begins, it cannot end until you have a winner. And so they cannot recess or stop the voting. It has to continue until there's a winner. So this means that those who might want to influence the election but with money don't know where to target. Cannot know where to target. And once they find out where to target, then the voting takes place so quickly that they don't have that opportunity. So again, the role of money in politics is minimized. We'll have to see how close it gets to being eliminated, how close it gets to being zero, but at least it is greatly minimized. And so those are other reasons then for us to support the Cheongguk Constitution and to study it. You know, many people say that they've read it, but they haven't actually read it. You know, when we get into discussions about the Constitution, I can say they don't know what's in it, even though they said they've read it. Even people who say, "Oh, I translated it, so I know what's in it." But when they talk about it, they don't know what's in it. So you need to actually read it in order and know what's there, so that you can. If I give you a pop quiz, you can give an answer. All right. All right. In other news here, in Chicago, the city that has had many, 400 deaths now, 400 murders now since the beginning of the year, but continues to restrict the ownership of guns by its good citizens, and continues also to identify itself as a sanctuary city where it's welcoming people, some percentage of whom are criminals. And so the Justice Department of the federal government has said, okay, then if you're not going to cooperate with getting illegal immigrants out of the country or by reporting them to the federal authorities, then we're not going to give you some of the support that we normally give to police departments. Well, now the mayor of Chicago wants to sue the Trump Justice Department. Mayor Emanuel says he's going to sue the Trump Justice Department on Monday over its new sanctuary city rules. New rules just out prevent sanctuary cities like Chicago to get certain law enforcement grants, and so the mayor says Chicago will file a suit to kill the rules and get the millions in question. In an interview with WLS-AM for Sunday's edition of Bill Cameron and Connected to Chicago, the mayor said, "We are not going to be put in a position of choosing who we are as a welcoming city and strengthening our police department. These are exactly the kind of training and technology you want to be investing in right now, and also do it in a way that the community is involved." So they want their, Infowars.com video. They want their Somalis. They want the sweet Somalis. Anyway, Chicago wants to continue to get illegal immigrants. It says it wants to be a welcoming city, but they don't want to give guns to their citizens, and they also want to strengthen their police department so they can centralize the central control. and the Democratic mayor thinks it's unfair that the federal government won't give him millions of dollars to do that because they will not cooperate with the federal government. All right, Hillary rehiring campaign aides. The U.S. Army halts use of Chinese-made drones over cyber concerns. North Korea's number 2 official on 10-day visit to Iran. That's something that is of concern because North Korea and Iran have a long relationship. North Korea has exported a lot of missiles to Iran, and now we see that they are talking again. Amid new U.S. sanctions, North Korea's number 2 official began a 10-day visit to Iran on Thursday that could result in the two sides expanding their ties. Iran's official IRNA news agency reported Kim Yong-nam, chairman of the Supreme Assembly of North Korea, arrived Thursday for the weekend inauguration ceremony for Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. Kim Yong-nam is an interesting character. He's now serving the Kim family in its third generation. He started out working with Kim Il-sung, the grandfather, and he worked with Kim Jong-il and now Kim Jong-un. And it's interesting to see people who are able to avoid the various purges and so forth, because Kim Jong-un in particular seems to take pleasure in being able to demonstrate his power by killing the people who are closest to him, and yet Kim Yong-nam is able to survive in that situation. Could be because he's kind of irrelevant and no one really cares about him. That's one possibility. But given the head of North Korea's parliament is expected to stay for 10 days in Iran, the trip is being seen as a front for other purposes, including expanding military cooperation. At the same time, Pyongyang is looking for ways to counter sanctions and to boost the hard currency for Kim Jong-un's regime. There could be very problematic cooperation going on because of the past history and because it makes strategic sense, especially for Iran now, said Emily Landau, a senior research fellow at the Israeli-based Institute for National Security Studies and head of the Arms Control and Regional Security Program. INSS is an independent think tank affiliated with Tel Aviv University. The man whom Iran described as the North's number 2 is believed to be traveling with a delegation of other officials from Pyongyang, including economic and military officials. If I were to take a guess, I would say that North Korea is going to sell Iran some missiles, especially Scud-type missiles that Iran can use to shoot at its enemies, such as Israel or perhaps others, perhaps Saudi Arabia. And North Korea wants to get hard currency in return. Somebody's got to pay for Kim Jong-un's liquor and sports cars. For North Korea, it's not a question of ideology, Landau said. It's not a question of being close politically and maybe in terms of any of their religious orientation. It's all about who can pay in hard cash. That's what makes North Korea a very dangerous source of nuclear technology, components, and know-how. As North Korea's nuclear technology could very well end up in the hands of terrorist organizations such as ISIS. That's very possible. Maybe that's what this is about. Maybe that's what this visit is about. Last month, the Central Intelligence Agency Director, Mike Pompeo, said in a speech at the Intelligence and National Security Alliance that he had created 2 new mission centers aimed at focusing on putting a dagger in the heart of the Korean problem and the problem of Iran. Yeah, what if North Korea's nuclear technology were to end up in the hands of ISIS? ISIS right now is being pushed to the brink. A well-placed nuclear weapon might be what they need in order to get back some of their momentum. Wow, that's frightening. both the North Koreans and Iranians feel a serious threat from the United States and the West and sort of see each other as very different countries but facing a somewhat similar situation, said Matthew Bunn. Well, not really. I mean, North Korea is a cult. Iran is a cult. Islam, cult. So I don't know if they're that different. A nuclear proliferation expert and professor of practice at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. North Korea's newly built embassy in Tehran opened Wednesday, according to the North's state-run KCNA news agency. It said the new embassy was built to boost exchanges, contacts, and cooperation between the two countries for world peace and security and international justice. In July, nuclear-armed North Korea conducted 2 tests of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Iran could have an ICBM capability similar to North Korea within a few years. As just last week, it successfully launched a satellite-carrying rocket that some see as a precursor to a long-range ballistic missile weapon capability. There's been fairly extensive cooperation on missiles, said Bunn, and in fact, early generations of Iranian missiles were thought to be basically modestly adapted North Korean missiles. Like I said, North Korea has been exporting missiles to Iran. For example, Tehran's Shahab-3 ballistic missile, capable of reaching Saudi Arabia from Iranian land, is based on technology from North Korea's Nodong-1 rockets. Iran's Ghadir's small submarine, which in May conducted a cruise missile test, is a vessel remarkably similar to those used by Pyongyang. All right, well, let's come back after a break and talk more about this.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And we're talking about a visit by the number 2 high official in the North Korea regime to Iran this weekend. And there's a history of cooperation between the two countries on missile technology and on submarine technology. And especially Iran's missiles in the past have looked very similar to what North Korea exported to them. And so they just modestly adapted them. But now, continue this CNBC article, there's still a bit of a mystery on the nuclear side. But some former CIA analysts have previously said Iranian scientists have attended nuclear tests in North Korea. There have been recent reports North Korea may be preparing for its 6th nuclear test. Tehran's hands are tied due to the international nuclear agreement, although there is a possibility it could quietly be teaming up with North Korea on nuclear research and doing it from the Korean Peninsula. The fact they are cooperating so closely on the missile realm is cause to believe that there could be even more cooperation going on even directly in the nuclear realm, says Landau. Bunn, however, isn't so sure there's currently any collaboration on the nuclear side because between the two regimes, but said there's a real danger, potential of it happening. So this article is important because it shows that the North Korea issue is not just about security in Northeast Asia. It's also about security in the Middle East. Interesting that North Korea, of course, being the place where Jesus' second coming occurred, and now Korea and Israel are in kind of a very similar positions where they are under a nuclear threat. And the United States is involved in both areas. And now that the U.S. has and the international community has put think that they've put Iran in a position where it cannot develop nuclear weapons, Iran is going to cooperate with North Korea and just import those nuclear weapons from North Korea. Or maybe, maybe Iranian scientists were helping North Korea in its nuclear development all along as well. We know that Russian scientists have been involved there. Russian scientists who couldn't get a job after the end of the Cold War and the sort of denuclear or the getting rid of some of their nuclear technology, just to move to North Korea and getting jobs there in North Korea to help North Korea develop its nuclear technology. That's been going on. We know that China has been involved, exporting parts and stuff to North Korea and technology as well. So this nuclear thing in North Korea is expanding ever more widely, and we'll have to see what Trump intends to do about that. Meanwhile, U.S. may soon expand the UN talks on North Korea sanctions, signaling a China deal, diplomats say. Sanctions, I'm still waiting for someone to tell me how sanctions on Cuba did any good over the last 50 years. I really don't have much faith in sanctions at all. But here we see that the United States could shortly broaden talks on a push for stronger UN sanctions on North Korea to include all 15 Security Council members, signaling a likely deal with China on new measures, diplomats said on Thursday. Since North Korea's July 4th launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile, the United States has been negotiating with Pyongyang ally China on a draft resolution to impose new sanctions on North Korea, which fired a second ICBM last Friday in defiance of UN Security Council resolutions. We've been working hard for some time, and we certainly hope that this is going to be a consensus resolution, China's UN Ambassador Liu Jie told Reuters on Thursday. Some diplomats said the United States could give the draft resolution to all 15 council members as early as Thursday. That would be the day before yesterday. Typically, the United States and China have agreed sanctions on North Korea before formally involving other council members. A resolution needs 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by the United States, China, Russia, France, or Britain to be adopted. Of course, those 5 countries they are the permanent members of the UN Security Council, and a veto by any one of them kills any resolution in that council. All right, other news on Drudge. Apple's cellular-capable watch to break iPhone ties. Where is that? Yeah, here we go. Remember Dick Tracy? Apple to launch watches that can make calls, says Bloomberg. Apple Inc. plans to release a version of its smartwatch later this year that can connect directly to cellular networks, Bloomberg reported on Friday, citing people familiar with the matter. This is a Reuters article. Some of the new models for the Apple Watch will be equipped with LTE chips and be able to perform many tasks without needing an iPhone to be in range, the Bloomberg report said. Currently, the Apple Watch needs to be connected to an iPhone to send messages, get directions from maps, and stream music. Intel Corp will supply the LTE modems for the watch, according to Bloomberg. The iPhone maker is already in talks with carriers in the United States and Europe about offering the cellular version of the Apple Watch, the report said. Intel declined to comment, while Apple did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. All these science fiction things coming to life. HBO Chaos, new Game of Thrones episode leaks online. Hackers threaten more. Social media, cycle of failure fuels addiction. USA running out of bomb-sniffing dogs. Seniors board cannabis for trip to marijuana dispensary. The name of the bus is Cannabis. I get it. Okay. Woman shot in vagina in sex game gone wrong. Maybe not such a good game. NYT, Mueller seeks White House documents on Flynn. Twitter censors Trump jobs report. Twitter censors Trump jobs report. Dow chalks up 8th record close in a row. Greenspan, it's about to burst. Record 153,513,000 employed. See what Twitter's up to here. This is an InfoWars story. Eric Trump on Friday exposed Twitter had censored a news story he shared showing great American job numbers. In a Friday message to his followers, Trump showed how a tweet he shared from the Drudge Report Twitter account was blocked and labeled potentially sensitive content. Why are my tweets about jobs and the economy being censored? Trump asked. Eric was attempting to share a Drudge Report tweet from CNBC showing July job numbers grew by 209,000 jobs in July, beating the 183,000 expected job growth. The shadow ban by Twitter underscores how the leftist social media platform actively works to hide tweets which reflect positively on the president. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Twitter also censored positive replies to Trump tweets in addition to tweets sent out by Trump himself. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey has previously expressed support for failed Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Boo Twitter, boo Twitter, boo Twitter. Greenspan says, though, that all this is about to burst. Let's get that up. Greenspan says the bond bubble is going to break because of abnormally low interest rates. Former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan issued a bold warning Friday that the bond market is on the cusp of a collapse that also will threaten stock prices. In a CNBC interview, the longtime central bank chief said the prolonged period of low interest rates is about to end, and with it, a bull market in fixed income that has lasted more than 3 decades. The current level of interest rates is abnormally low, and there's only one direction in which they can go. And when they start, they will be rather rapid, Greenspan said on Squawk Box. It's true, you know. I don't think it takes Greenspan to be able to make that statement. I mean, the interest rates have been abnormally low, and there's only one direction. I can say that. I've been telling my kids that. I've been telling my kids, listen, if you have any debt, get rid of it. But if you can't get rid of it, at least to put it on a fixed interest rate, so that not the variable interest rate, because there's only one direction that interest rates can go on. But no one's nominating me to become a head of the Federal Reserve. I don't know. It doesn't take a genius to know that, to be able to make these statements that Greenspan is making. The low interest rate environment has been the product of current monetary policy at the institution he helmed from 1987 to 2006. The Fed took its benchmark rate to near zero during the financial crisis and kept it there for 7 years after. Since December 2015, the Fed has approved 4 rate hikes, but government bond yields remained mired near record lows. Greenspan did not criticize the policies of the current Fed, but he warned that the low-rate environment can't last forever and will have severe consequences once it ends. I have no time frame on the forecast, he said. I have a chart which goes back to the 1800s, and I can tell you that this particular period sticks out. But you have no way of knowing in advance when it will actually trigger. One point he did make about timing is it likely will be quick and take the market by surprise. It looks stronger just because it looks stronger before it isn't stronger, he said. Anyone thinks that they can forecast when the bubble will break is in for a disastrous experience. In addition to his general work at the Fed, which also featured an extended period of low rates through, though nowhere near their current position, Greenspan is widely known for the irrational exuberance speech he gave at the American Enterprise Institute in 1996. The speech warned about asset prices and said it is difficult to tell when a bubble is about to burst. Those remarks foreshadowed the popping of the dot-com bubble, and the phrase has found a permanent place in the Wall Street lexicon. You can never be quite sure when irrational exuberance arises, he told CNBC. I was doing it as part of a much broader speech and talking about analysis of the markets and the like, and I wasn't trying to focus short term, but the press loved that term. Well, if you're going to say the world's going to come to an end, but I can't tell you when, that's kind of it could be 1 billion years from now, right? I mean, at some point in time, disaster is going to strike. So if you just say disaster is going to strike, yeah, well, anyone can say that. The problem is when is disaster going to strike? But that's what everybody wants to know. But it is certainly true that disaster is going to strike, and perhaps other people are willing to give a shorter time frame. A lot of warning has been going out about September this year, or autumn this year, or sometime autumn this year to next year. I've seen various articles talking in those kinds of terms. Certainly, it's a good idea to get rid of your debt right now if you can. Pay it off if at all possible. Pay it off. Find a way to do that. And if you can't pay it off, then put it on a fixed rate because those variable rates are going to start going up very, very quickly. Like Greenspan says, once it starts going up, it's probably going to go up quickly. And I remember, what was it about? The 30-year U.S. Treasury bond was, what was it? It was way over 10%. The yield was way over 10% back in, when I was in college or just out of college or something like that. 10 or even way over 10%. And those kinds of, I don't know if those kinds of days will come back, but interests go up and down, up and down, and up and down, and clearly they are down. And what goes down must come up when you're talking about interest rates. All right, we'll take a break, and we'll come back in a minute with more news from the Choni Group perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Kahr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Kahr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit kahr.com today.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th of 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And we have a Republican donor from Virginia Beach, Virginia, suing the GOP, the Republican Party, accusing the party of fraud over the failed Obamacare repeal. That sounds like a good idea. From an article from Norfolk in the local newspaper there. A retired attorney in Virginia Beach is so incensed that Republicans couldn't repeal the Affordable Care Act that he's suing to get political donations back, accusing the GOP of fraud and racketeering. Bob Heumann, 70, filed a lawsuit Thursday in U.S. District Court saying the National and Virginia Republican parties and some GOP leaders raised millions of dollars in campaign funds while knowing they weren't going to be able to overturn the law also known as Obamacare. The GOP, quote, has been engaged in a pattern of racketeering, which involves massive fraud perpetrated on Republican voters and contributors, as well as some independents and Democrats, unquote, the suit said. Racketeering, perhaps better known for use in prosecuting organized crime, involves a pattern of illegal behavior by a specific group. The lawsuit lists as defendants the Republican National Committee and Virginia's two national GOP committee members, Morton Blackwell and Cynthia Dunbar, as well as the Republican Party of Virginia and State Party Chairman John Whitbeck. In an email, Blackwell dismissed Heumann's complaint as a frivolous nuisance suit that should be thrown out of court by any judge. In a separate email Dunbar sent to Blackwell that was forwarded to the Virginia pilot, Dunbar referred to it as ridiculous. But at the same time, both said they understood where Heumann was coming from. Blackwell said the suit is a sign of conservative anger at the Republican-controlled Congress that has not yet repealed and replaced Obamacare. He argued that progressives had taken over the Democratic Party and seemed to lament that conservatives had not yet taken over the Republican Party. Too few conservatives are willing to invest their time, talent, and money and personally participate inside the Republican Party, Blackwell said. A Republican majority will mean a conservative majority if and when a sufficient number of conservatives figure out why the success of their principles depends on their personal investment in local, state, and national Republican Party committees and in party nomination contests. The spokesman for the state party did not respond to a request for comment. Heummann's suit comes a week after the Senate failed by one vote to approve a bill to repeal the ACA. It argues that the national GOP raised more than $735 million and Virginia's party more than $20 million from 2009 to 2016, in part by promising to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Heumann said he has standing to sue the GOP because he has been a contributor. Federal Election Commission records show he gave a total of $875 to New Hampshire's GOP, but no donations were noted for the National Party or Virginia. He was a Granite State resident for more than a decade and a Trump campaign volunteer there before moving to the beach last year. He wants the party to either return campaign contributions to donors or exert pressure on Republican legislators to repeal the law under threat of losing GOP financial support. He acknowledged that members of the House of Representatives and Senate cannot be sued for failing to abide by campaign promises, but argued that political parties don't have that same protection. If the candidates don't deliver, It's incumbent on the RNC to go to the candidate and say, you don't do this, Human said before filing the suit, referring to the Republican National Committee. Human's suit contends that Republicans knew the GOP wouldn't be able to repeal the health care law after President Barack Obama's re-election in 2012, but continued to raise money on the promise it would. As evidence, he pointed to comments by then House Speaker John Boehner just after Obama's re-election. It's pretty clear that the president was re-elected. Obamacare is the law of the land, the Ohio Republican said when asked if the GOP-controlled House would push again for a repeal of the 2010 health care law. There are certainly maybe parts of it we believe need to be changed. Maybe we'll do that. No decisions at this point. A Human suit states, in making this statement, Speaker Boehner was sending a message to House Republicans and others that repeal was not going to happen. He was trying to put the issue to rest. Nevertheless, the Republican Party continued to use the mails, wires, and interstate commerce to solicit donations and votes to secure House and Senate majorities and ultimately the presidency. Now that the Republican Party has won the House, the Senate, and the presidency, the effort it is making to repeal and replace Obamacare is itself a fraud upon Republican voters and donors. The pattern of racketeering extended to the party's response to Trump's candidacy, his suit states. The GOP units raised money to push the health care repeal or Trump's promises, but never intended to implement the Trump agenda or fulfill the promises of the Republican platform. Well, I guess a judge will have to decide whether this is a frivolous suit or a suit that deserves to go forward, but certainly reflects the anger that many Republicans and many conservatives are feeling right now towards the Republican Party for its failure. And especially, well, John McCain, of course, cast the deciding vote that decided the failure of the repeal effort in the Senate. But remember the other two Republicans who also voted against repeal, and of course all the Democratic senators who also voted against repeal. So McCain didn't act alone, although he was the deciding factor. Certainly understand the heart that is behind this suit. Let's follow that later on and see what a judge decides to do about it. Maxine Waters, confusion, impeach Vice President Putin after Trump. Like I say, people don't read the Constitution. Okay, she doesn't know the difference between Putin and Pence. But anyway, even, I don't know if she understands that impeaching the president and the vice president still isn't going to make Hillary president, all right? Some people definitely seem to be under that misunderstanding. Representative Maxine Waters, Democrat of California, said that Democrats should try to impeach Vice President Mike Pence after they impeached President Trump. On The View on Friday, do you think Pence will be better than Trump? Host Joy Behar asked Waters. No, and when we finish with Trump, we have to go and get Pence. He's next, Waters said. Putin or Pence? Behar asked. Pence, Waters said, correcting herself. Waters has been calling for Trump's impeachment since February. Because is she trying to make Paul Ryan president? Is that what she wants? She thinks that Paul Ryan will be better than either Trump or she may have a point there, of course. Paul Ryan is a rhino, Republican name only. She may be up to something there. Log sparks Jaws fears in Potomac River. Maddow, I'm like fad diet. A liberal group urges advertisers to boycott Hannity. Saudi Arabia to allow women in bikinis at new beach resort. Exorcism doctor go-to for demonic possession. Saw 90-pound woman throw deacon across the room. The spirit world is real, folks. Spirit world is real. Don't mess with that. Don't mess with it, especially the lower parts of the spirit world. Cow shootings spark fears of serial cattle killer. Baltimore begs for weekend ceasefire. Nobody kill anybody. Baltimore, we know about Chicago, but Baltimore has also had a lot of trouble. And it was actually after Maryland tightened its gun control laws, in other words, made it more difficult for people to own guns, that the crime went up. Is anybody taking a hint from this? Anyway, standing up here in the Baltimore Sun, standing up for a cause. Baltimore hopes for a 72-hour ceasefire. Devron McKnight was driving home from Maryland, a shock trauma on Friday afternoon when he spotted 36 people on Edmondson Avenue rallying to support a 72-hour ceasefire to violence in Baltimore. The 23-year-old McKnight said he felt compelled to join the demonstration given that he had a bullet still lodged in his neck after he was shot Thursday about 10 blocks south of the ceasefire event. Somebody pulled up and shot me on my way to work, said McKnight, still dressed in green hospital scrubs, socks, and slippers. People need to put the guns down and stand up for a cause. It's crazy. Good people don't need to put the guns down, all right? It's the bad people that need to put the guns down, and it's the good people with the guns who are going to make the bad people put their guns down. And Maryland, just look at its own history. When the gun laws were more liberal than they are now, in other words, when it was easier for good people to have guns, the crime rate was lower. When they tightened those laws, made it more difficult for good people to have guns, the crime rate went up. A free hug event, that'll do it. A free hug event. Yeah, there we go. That'll do it. A free hug event is scheduled to start Saturday's activities in Druid Hill Park, site of another near-fatal shooting Thursday night. There are more than 30 events planned citywide over the weekend to generate grassroots pressure to halt the violence that has resulted in a record 204 homicides in the city through the end of July. Logic doesn't seem to penetrate into this argument. All right, let's talk about a society that's a little more advanced than Maryland in terms of its socialism, and that is Venezuela. Venezuela, of course, had an election recently where they elected a new assembly. The old assembly was controlled by the opposition party and those opposed to Maduro, President Maduro, taking complete control and becoming a dictator in law, not just in fact. And so he said, okay, well, let's create a new assembly, parallel to and separate from. And this new assembly is charged with rewriting the Constitution, and it's going to rewrite it in a way that will make Maduro dictator. This is how you go from democracy to socialism to dictatorship. Venezuela is showing a very, very good example. In Bogota, Colombia, members of President Nicolas Maduro's governing party marched triumphantly into Venezuela's Capitol building on Friday, calling to order a 545-member body with plans to rewrite the Constitution and consolidate their power over the nation. The Constituent Assembly, as the group is called, took a symbolic jab at their political rivals, parading through the gates of the legislative chamber, holding portraits of former President Hugo Chavez, which were taken down just last year after opposition parties won control of the National Assembly. This assembly didn't emerge from nothing, said Delcy Rodriguez, a former foreign minister close to Mr. Maduro, who will lead the body. It has dodged the obstacles thrown in its way by those who resist democracy. And they call it democracy. North Korea, its official name, DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. In fact, it is the monarchy, the monarchic kingdom of North Korea, but they don't call it that. They don't tell the truth. And here again in Venezuela, we see that democracy is being used to justify an undemocratic dictatorship. The convening of the assembly was the culmination of an ambitious plan by the president to secure political power over Venezuela. In a contentious election on Sunday, Mr. Maduro instructed Venezuelans to choose delegates from a list of allies in the governing party. voters were not given the option of rejecting the plan. Again, North Korea, you get a list of approved candidates. The body will rule Venezuela for however long it takes its members to rewrite the constitution, giving virtually unlimited power to Mr. Maduro's party. Among the new leaders were Mr. Maduro's wife, Cilia Flores, the president's son, Nicolas Diosdado Cabello, a powerful former military chief who participated in a coup in the 1990s with Mr. Chavez, and a radical television show host known for broadcasting embarrassing recordings of opposition politicians. Before the ceremony, crowds of government supporters surrounded the Capitol, many dressed in red, the color of Mr. Maduro's Socialist Party, waving flags and dancing to salsa music on speakers. The festive atmosphere was in marked contrast to the months of anti-government protests and clashes that have left more than 100 people dead, and to the hardships faced by Venezuelans dealing with shortages of food and medicine. On Friday, Mr. Maduro urged Assembly members to move swiftly to resolve these problems. The mandate of this constituent assembly is to use its power to make peace, to construct peace for a new economic model, he told supporters. The peace that he's talking about, of course, is the socialist peace, which is a imposed peace, peace imposed by force of arms. Those arms belonging to the socialist government or socialist party. In the case of China, it's a force of arms that belongs to the people's, the Chinese Communist Party. It's a dictatorship, and people in Venezuela are going to continue to suffer. But you know, and already the Trump administration has announced sanctions against Venezuela. But this is a situation that the United States must not become militarily involved in. I hope no one is thinking about that. We don't want to get involved in this situation militarily. Just let the people of Venezuela act as the owners of their own country. And people of Venezuela have to stand up and do it. Yes, people may die. People will die. 120 people have already died in the marches. But those marches have to continue, and they have to continue to develop if the people of Venezuela are to actually become owners of their own country. And we cannot do it for them. We cannot intervene in their portion of responsibility. And it's oftentimes, you know, it's really sometimes really sad. And as a parent, you watch children, and when they go in a direction that you know is against heaven and is against God, and goes in children go in a direction that is destructive to them. As a parent, you try to teach them not to go in that direction, but in the end, it is their portion of responsibility to make their own choice. And it's sad to watch people who go in self-destructive directions. Especially it's sad when it happens on a national level, such as with Venezuela. But it is their portion of responsibility, and the United States cannot make the country right on their behalf. They have to do it themselves. All right, let's take a break. Let's take a 5-minute break now, and we'll be back after 5 minutes with more news from a Choni Group perspective.
Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And in this segment, I want to go into a story about drug abuse. In the last segment, we were talking briefly about portions of responsibility, and that's related very much to the issue of drug abuse and substance abuse in general. Commission urges Trump to declare opioid crisis a national emergency, says this article. And as I'm going to go through this, I'm going to be emphasizing that the drug abuse is not an area that the federal government should be involved in. The war on drugs has been going on for many years now, and we have even more addiction than we had before. And no effective method or strategy has been developed for fighting drug abuse, certainly at least not by the federal government. This is an area that should be handled in the private sector by private charities and religious charities, faith-based charities, community organizations. But as a step towards that, at least the federal government should give the responsibility for this to the states and not try to be administering this on the federal level. But we'll go through and see what this article says. The White House Opioid Commission, led by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, released an interim report this week that calls on President Trump to officially declare the opioid crisis a national emergency. We have 142 people a day in this country dying of drug overdose. That means every 3 weeks we have a loss equal to the loss we had on 9/11, Christie said in a press conference on Wednesday. This is a national emergency. Always the people dying, politicians like to bring this out. Oh, someone died. It's a national emergency. It was 142 people a day die. It's a national emergency. People die. That happens. In fact, it happens to everyone. These politicians use that as a way of trying to justify anything. The President's Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and the Opioid Crisis claims that executive action would make the epidemic a top priority and allow the cabinet to take bold steps toward combating drug abuse. such a step could enhance the administration's ability to make grants and conduct investigations. You see there, the reason they wanted to declare this a national emergency is so that the federal government will be spending more money on this. But the federal government spending more money means that they become more controlling, more deeply involved in local situations. And that is why they should not do it. At least as a first step, leave it up to the states, leave it up to the states. Then different states can develop different strategies, and some will work and some will not, and we'll be able to see which ones work, and then those that work can be applied to on a wider scale and so forth. But the federal government needs to get out of this. Americans consume more opioids than any other country, the commission said, citing, one reason for that, is that this whole attitude on medicine, when you watch television, and I haven't watched television in a while, but when I used to watch television, I mean, the number of ads for medicine, for pharmaceutical products is just amazing. Ad after ad after ad. And so I think I don't see this in other countries, at least not the countries that I've lived in. So I think it's not at all surprising to me that Americans would use more opioids than people in any other country, because they probably use more pharmaceutical products, and because the pharmaceutical products, pharmaceutical countries are spending so much on advertising. Citing a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration report that said 4 out of every 5 new heroin users began with prescription opioid abuse, the commission described the nation's health care system as the root of the crisis. The nation's health care system, what was that? Obamacare, right? Obamacare. The nation's health care system is Obamacare. So Obamacare is the root of the crisis. A set of recommendations was presented to the president, including improved prescription tracking, increased treatment and education on substance abuse, and a call to ensure law enforcement always carries the counter-overdose drug naloxone. Well, all these things can be done on the local level. Given the recent spike in overdoses, a study released last week by STAT warns that opioids could kill nearly 500,000 Americans in the next decade if the issue is neglected. But according to Richard Baum, acting White House drug czar, the White House already is pursuing some of the recommendations to protect against abuse. Quote, addressing the opioid epidemic is a top priority for the president and the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, unquote, Baum said in a statement. Quote, the good news is that the administration is already working on several of these recommendations, including improving our abilities to detect fentanyl, increase access to medication-assisted treatment, and looking at ways to improve prescription education. The President and I both appreciate the Commission's hard work on this interim report and are eagerly awaiting the final report. So basically he's saying, hey guys, tell me something I don't know. We appreciate your hard work, but we're already doing this stuff. And he mentions fentanyl, and this is fentanyl as a kind of opioid that is particularly serious. I don't know if it's the most serious of them all, but it's been in the news because it comes in from across the southern border and also by mail from China, and it's I've read that it's 50 more times addictive than heroin, and it is so strong that first responders have accidentally overdosed just by handling it. In other words, you get it on your hands or something like that when you're handling it, and people can accidentally overdose just by that. So it's a very dangerous drug, and drug dealers use it to cut heroin with, because they can then, I don't know, give them, obviously because it brings them more profit. Drug users don't realize that the substance that they're buying is much more addictive than what they're accustomed to, and so they take their usual amount and they die as a result of an overdose. And so fentanyl is particularly a very, very dangerous drug that is more and more problem in today's society. So I'm not minimizing the problem at all. But what I am saying is that the federal government does not have a good track record in its war on drugs, and they set up a new commission, and the new commission, at least in its preliminary report, has not come up with any new strategy that is not already being done. So this has to be taken out of the federal government's hands entirely and put into the hands of the states. Particularly Chris Christie. I mean, come on, President Trump, Donald Trump. Did you really have? Okay? Well, I mean, this is the guy who closed the beach in New Jersey and then took his family out and to lie on the beach where no one else was allowed to go into. He doesn't love the people. Chris Christie does not love the people. I think that has been established in New Jersey in his record as governor. So it's difficult to understand why Donald Trump would even put him in this position where he's trying to do something that's for the good of the country. Tell him to go out and just keep lying on that beach. The Trump administration is taking action on other fronts. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced Wednesday the formation of the Opioid Fraud and Abuse Detection Unit. Again, creating a new organization in the federal government, more power concentrated in the federal government. The pilot program will be implemented in 12 districts across the nation to focus on preventing opioid-related healthcare fraud and pill mill schemes. Politicians want to be able to say to people, we're doing something. And the problem is that people are saying, hey, we have a problem. Government, you do something about it. And so the government comes back and says, yeah, we're doing something about it. We're concentrating more power in ourselves, and we're making ourselves stronger. Don't worry. Of course, with more power, you have more corruption. But government should just say, hey, not us. You guys take care of it. You guys handle this. We know that you're able to handle this. You guys do it. So in the Chunugul Constitution, it says that intoxicating substances cannot be banned. They can be regulated, but not banned, is what it says there. And some people have interpreted this as, oh, look, Hyung Jin says it's all right for us to smoke marijuana. That's not the case. But the idea is that the people, the owners of Chunugul, need to know better than to take these intoxicating substances. It shouldn't be up to government to ban them. We shouldn't be avoiding them because they are illegal, but we should be avoiding them because we know they're bad for us. All right? Do you think that people who are not smoking marijuana now the only reason we're not smoking marijuana is because it's illegal? No. We're not smoking marijuana because we know it's bad for us, and we don't want to put that kind of junk into our lungs. Same with opioids. It's not because it's illegal that we're not abusing them. We're not abusing them because we don't want to subject our bodies to that kind of abuse. And people in Chunugul should know better than to engage in this kind of an activity. And same thing with alcohol. Dr. David Goodfriend, director of the Loudoun County Health Department in Virginia, said virtually anyone in the country could fall victim to substance abuse. All right, could. You say the possibility is there? Sure, the possibility is there. The possibility is always there. But not everyone will fall victim to substance abuse because a lot of us have brains between our ears. It's not just open space there, vacuum there. Loudoun County, one of the richest counties in the nation, has seen a rise in the wide variety of people struggling with opioid abuse in recent years, he said. Several years ago, we saw more people getting into trouble with opioids and ending up in the emergency room and dying, Goodfriend told Fox News. Virginia declared opioid addiction a public health emergency last year. All right, well, if Virginia wants to do that, people in Virginia can handle that, can decide whether or not that's a good thing. So why not let Virginia handle it? Why does the federal government have to suck up the authority into Washington? While the commission pushes for additional action, the Trump administration is facing skepticism from Democrats given his attempts, unsuccessful to date, to repeal Obamacare, though some of the congressional proposals included money to fight opioid abuse. Trump promised he'd come to the aid of communities ravaged by the opioid epidemic, but so far he's done nothing for them, DNC spokesperson Daniel Wessel said. In fact, Trump's budget proposal and the Medicaid cuts he supported as part of the health care repeal bill would both make this crisis even worse. Well, I think it would put it in the hands of the states. That is what needs to be done. Politicians are not our messiahs. Politicians are not our saviors, and we need to stop treating them as such. Every time we see a pothole, we say, "Oh, the government, call up the government, call up the government." Every time we see, the smallest problem, we say, "Oh, the government has to do something about this." But this is a kind of addiction, actually. This is addiction of government abuse. It's abuse of government. It's abuse of the archangel. That's what it is. It's a dependency, government dependency. That's a kind of substance abuse. And maybe that's the root of the problem. Maybe that's where we need to say the root of the problem is. That's government abuse as a government dependency. So it's a portion of responsibility. It's all about portions of responsibility. Don't expect the government to come in and fulfill your portion of responsibility for you. Substance sickens at least 10 people at IRS site. Fognado, Santa Cruz. Good photograph there you can see if you like. DC Park Service catches 116 geese, turns into meals for homeless. Hikers form human chain to cross flood-swollen river. Well, that's good. Good survival thing there. People working together in an emergency. China ups ante in standoff with India. Now, right now, while we're all looking at the Korean Peninsula in Asia, China and India are getting closer to war over a territorial dispute. China is a big country, and it's got a lot of countries surrounding it. China has stepped up its rhetoric in an increasingly tense border row with India, hinting at the possibility of military action in a propaganda push that analysts are calling genuinely troubling. For more than a month, Indian and Chinese troops have been locked in a standoff on a remote but strategically important Himalayan plateau near where Tibet, India, and Bhutan meet. On Thursday, Chinese Defense Ministry spokesman Ren Guojiang warned that Beijing had shown restraint but had a bottom line. No country should underestimate the Chinese forces' resolve and willpower to defend national sovereignty, he said in a post on the ministry website. It is a line that has been echoed almost word for word this week by the Foreign Ministry, the official Xinhua news agency, the ruling Communist Party mouthpiece, the People's Daily, the official military news website of the Chinese Armed Forces, and other outlets. On Wednesday, the Foreign Ministry released a 15-page document of facts about the border dispute, which included a map of alleged intrusions and photographs of what it stated were Indian troops and military vehicles on China's side of the frontier. Calling for the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of Indian troops, it warned Beijing would take all necessary measures to safeguard its interests. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang said Thursday that India was building roads, hoarding supplies, and deploying a large number of troops in the area. This is by no means for peace, again said, genuinely troubling. Mistrust between the giant neighbors goes back centuries, and the pair fought a brief war in 1962 in India's border state of Arunachal Pradesh. The recent escalation of China's rhetoric was generally troubling, Roy McCaff, head of Australian National University's National Security College, told AFP. It suggests that diplomatic conversations, including among high-level national security advisors, are failing to find a face-saving way for the two powers to withdraw their forces, he said. The plateau is strategically significant as it gives China access to the so-called Chicken Neck, a thin strip of land connecting India's northeastern states with the rest of the country. Despite the heated war of words, other analysts played down the possibility of an armed clash. The point of these statements isn't that war is imminent. Rather, they're an attempt to figure out how not to go to war without losing face, Shen Dingley, Vice Dean of Fudan University's Institute of International Studies, told AFP. Neither side wants to go to war, but China and India are acting like two unhappy little children. China has rolled out a massive new global infrastructure program known as the One Belt, One Road Initiative, which it presents as a peaceful development policy to connect Chinese companies to new markets around the world. China sees it as critics see it as a geopolitical power play. President Xi Jinping is set to meet Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at a summit of BRICS nations in the Chinese city of Xiamen in early September, and has said he hopes for greater cooperation within the bloc. But he is also gearing up for a key party congress later this year, at which he is expected to further consolidate his grip on power, making him unwilling to appear weak by backing down in the current dispute, said politics professor Yvonne Chu, who researches China's military at Hong Kong University. Chu said China was testing how much they can get away with in a region that is unlikely to draw the involvement of other major powers such as the U.S. They fought a war once. California kicks ICE out of state offices. Sewage sprayed on luggage at Nashville airport. Rampant sex abuse by Catholic priests uncovered on tiny U.S. island. That was the Guam story that we started off at 5 a.m. with. First NFL concussion payments approved. Increase in Americans renouncing citizenship. More Hollywood celebrities are leaving the country, I would hope, but I don't know. Missing woman survives 2 weeks on bugs and cattle trough. Good survivalist, I guess. Paper, Tinder date turns man's life into living hell. Liberals urge Sex and City star to challenge Governor Cuomo. Snakes, parrots among thousands of animals seized from feces-filled warehouse. Women who watch porn are less satisfied. Men falling victim to unrealistic expectations. Well, the king has emphasized many, many times that pornography actually destroys the marriage relationship. That applies to women as well as to men. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back with more news from a Cheongguk perspective right after this.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, not September yet, August 5th, 2017, although the weather is becoming more and more September-like, but it is still August, and the beginning of August. We're in the 5th day of August. And I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for Hyung Jin Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. A bit of a fun article. Oceans of water discovered inside the moon Inside the moon is a massive reservoir of water which will make man's colonies a reality, scientists said today. This is in the Express. This article has appeared before, but I haven't really had time to look at it before. So let's take a look at it. This is a good day. This is a good one for Saturday. The discovery of huge pockets of subsurface water, perhaps as much as on Earth, is a game changer for humans living long term or even permanently on our nearest neighbor. A new study revealed water levels in analyzed volcanic crystals were similar to those on Earth. The discovery was made when experts from Brown University in the U.S. tested crystals from Earth's natural satellites that were taken during the Apollo 15 and 17 missions in the 1970s. Of course, we'll have to go up there and actually dig a hole and see if the water is actually there, but they're analyzing crystals from volcanoes and discovered that there's water in those crystals, and that the water levels is similar to those on Earth. And so they are assuming that this means that there is water under the crust on the moon. We'll have to see, how deep it is and what kind of water it is, whether it's actually drinkable. Writing in their paper published in Nature Geoscience, the nearly ubiquitous presence of water in large and small lunar pyroclastic deposits adds to the growing evidence that the lunar mantle is an important reservoir of water. Unquote. The researchers behind the study state this signifies large volumes of water beneath the lunar surface, something that will help massively with future moon missions. Additionally, most scientists agree that where there is water, it massively increases the chances of finding life. Lead author Dr. Shui Li, formerly of Brown University and now at the University of Hawaii, quote, other studies have suggested the presence of water ice in shadowed regions at the lunar poles, but the pyroclastic deposits are locations that may be easier to access. Anything that helps save future lunar explorers from having to bring lots of water from home is a big step forward, and our result suggests a new alternative. It had originally been thought that water would only exist on the north and south poles of the moon, but the crystals taken from all over the surface of the celestial body show that it could exist everywhere. Anthony Kolaprit, a NASA scientist who reviewed the paper, said, the fact that they see this feature associated with the glasses tells us there was indeed quite a bit of water in the interior of the moon when these volcanic eruptions were occurring. Okay, so he's saying that there looks like there was water in the past, but he's not saying anything about the present. Scientists have been looking to move humans away from Earth, and the discovery of masses of water beneath the surface makes that more realistic. The boss of the European Space Agency has said previously, a base on the moon will be created soon. Director General of the ESA, Johann Dietrich Werner, said the moon village is virtually guaranteed, and there are a list of worldwide entities which want to get involved in a lunar-based project. Speaking at a conference in Paris, the head of Europe's space arm said, for me, the moon village is already more or less a fact. Okay, there is nothing on the moon visible yet, but there will be something visible very soon because several of these entities are planning to go to the moon rather soon. I'm a bit skeptical about this idea of abandoning Earth, of jumping ship here, as if the Earth were a sinking ship. And I'm just wondering if this is something that the elites are planning as their sort of ultimate survival bunker. Perhaps to restart the human race. I don't know what they're planning. This is a moon village. Not sure why people would want to live on the moon at this point, unless they think that something's going to happen to the Earth. But it's a fun article. All right, let's take another break, and we'll come back with more news after this break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th of 2017, 8th year of Chungi, and the 6th month, the 14th day on the heavenly calendar. Guess what? Al Gore wants to become a Catholic. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. Birds of a feather flock together. Al Gore says, because of Pope Francis, I really could become a Catholic. Former Vice President Al Gore told CNN that he would consider converting to Catholicism because of the witness of Pope Francis, particularly in the area of environmental concern. I'm a Protestant, but I'll tell you, because of Pope Francis, I really could become a Catholic. He is really an amazing spiritual leader, Gore told Father John S. Rausch, who appeared with him on CNN Tuesday as part of a climate change town hall event. Gore, who was raised a Southern Baptist, went on to recommend that the people of all faith traditions read Pope Francis's environmental encyclical letter, which really addressed the question that you're asking here. Now, I was taught in my church that the purpose of life is to glorify God, and if we are heaping contempt on God's creation, then we're not living up to the duty that God is calling us to, Gord said. And so the way we live our lives is definitely connected to this. It is not a political issue. It is a matter of moral and spiritual issue, and thank you for bringing that up. Well, Al Gore, of course, became rich on false science, or richer. I guess he was rich before, but he became a lot richer based on the false science of climate change. And his inconvenient truth is that he is a fraud. And yeah, the Catholic Church is definitely supporting his false science, and so yeah, if he were to become a Catholic, then I'm sure I would say that Francis and Gore would deserve each other. I think that would be a good thing. What he says is, what he says is not wrong. That what he says here, that the purpose of life is to glorify God, and if we are heaping contempt on God's creation, then we are not living up to the duty that God is calling us to. Well, that's true, except that Al Gore is also not living up to that duty. And the God creator is to have dominion over the earth, to love the earth, after perfecting our character and perfecting, creating ideal families, to have a dominion over the earth and to love the earth from God's position and with true love, with absolute love. In other words, and through our 심정, the 심정 being the irrepressible impulse in a subject partner to experience joy by giving love to an object partner. And so, by giving love to experience love to the environment, we experience joy, and that is God's attitude towards His creation. That should be our attitude towards creation as well. Trouble is, of course, that Gore is not doing this. He is actually enriching himself by presenting false information to the public and using God's name in vain here because he's doing it in a self-centered way to increase his riches and to increase his control. And also the Catholic Church is the same. They want to increase a centralized control. That is how this climate change thing is being used by Al Gore, by the Catholic Church, by the UN, and by other international organizations. And here another article about fake science. Austin Ruse, Trans and Military is based on fake science. President Trump did the right thing in overturning the Obama policy of allowing the gender confused in uniform to defend our country. First and foremost, there is no scientific evidence that transgenderism is a real thing, except insofar as someone feels or thinks they are the wrong sex. There are no reputable studies that show any physical reality that leads someone to believe they are the wrong sex. There is no transgender gene, no part of the brain that is different in such a person. Certainly, there are scientific claims, but claims do not equal truth. Writing in NYU Department of Applied Psychology's online publication OPUS, or Opus, Elizabeth Glazer says, quote, currently there is a significant lack of neurological evidence that defends or disputes the idea that the brain is sexually dimorphic. And if so, where exactly gender and sexual identities are located. What she means is there is no brain proof for or against the notion that there are two sexes, something that even children know is somehow beyond this academic. Though she goes on to admit there is no blood test, MRI, or answers to questionnaires that are capable of making a diagnosis. A researcher in Vienna found a polymorphism of the CYP17 gene related to sex steroid metabolism is associated with female-to-male, but not male-to-male transsexualism. Unquote. 7 geneticists published a study in the Journal of Biological Psychiatry claiming to have found, quote, a likely genetic component to transsexualism, unquote. The official journal of the International Society of Psychoneuroendocrinology published a paper from the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry in Munich that found male-to-female transsexuals have similar second and fourth finger lengths to biological women. Stanford professor Robert Sapolsky claims that neuroimaging shows the brains of transgender adults are similar in small but important ways to those whose gender identity matches their biological sex. Sapolsky argues that some males have female brains. Spanish researcher Giuseppe Remedi studied the white matter microstructure of specific brain areas and claims to have found that female-to-male transsexuals, those who have not yet been treated with testosterone, had brain structures more similar to those of males than females in 3 of 4 cases of the brain, 3 of 4 areas of the brain. Researchers in Taipei, etc. All of this is fake science, ginned up to advance a certain ideology, says the author. Dr. McHugh draws an important analogy between anorexia and transgenderism. He says an anorexic may look in the mirror and see a fat person staring back. The anorexic is not fat, but she believes she is. Fatness is based on her subjective feelings, which are based in reality. In the same way, a so-called transgender person may look in the mirror and see the opposite sex staring back. Again, this is based on subjective belief on what the person feels, also not based on reality. McHugh points out that the anorexic needs therapy in order to work past her lack of reality, and in the same way, so does the person who thinks he is in the wrong body. It does not help our military readiness to have people serving who are, for lack of a better word, delusional. What's more, studies show even in trans-friendly Sweden that the gender-confused are 20 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population. We do them no favors putting them in such stressful situations as combat. Without any sound science to back up his order, President Obama imposed the transgender ideology on the U.S. military. What Trump has done in his policy of disallowing the gender-confused to serve in the military is to stand against fake science and in favor of real science. And this author, Austin Ruse, is president of the Center for Family and Human Rights and author of Fake Science Exposing the Left's Skewed Statistics, Fuzzy Facts, and Dodgy Data. Skewed Statistics, Fuzzy Facts, and Dodgy Data. Okay. Let's go to an article now on Mueller, the special investigator trying to bring down Trump, and see how far he's come. Mainstream media reports poured in Thursday and Friday indicating that special counsel Robert Mueller has far outstripped the original parameters of his investigation and begun digging into President Donald Trump's business dealings. CNN reported Thursday that sources close to the investigation told them they are hopeful, quote, the web of financial ties could offer a more concrete path toward potential prosecution than the broader and murkier question of collusion in the 2016 campaign. So they figured out that there was no collusion. Broader and murkier means we can't find anything, which, most likely the reason for that is it isn't there. And so now they're expanding it, trying to find something somewhere. After this striking admission, in effect acknowledging the weakness of the Russian collusion narrative more than a year into the investigation and the media hysteria, CNN goes on to report that these claimed grand jury subpoenas extend completely outside the scope of the supposed Russia investigation. CNN describes some subpoenas as unconnected to the 2016 elections and gives examples including the tenant lists of Trump Organization properties and documents related to the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. There was fraud in the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. Impeach the president for that. They chose the wrong woman as Miss Universe, and so Trump should be impeached. This is what we're going to hear, I guess. For the record, according to the order of appointment, Mueller's independent investigation was to be limited to, so there was some limitations on him. 1, any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump. And 2, any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. And 3, any other matters within the scope of 28 CFR 600.4 parentheses A, close parentheses. And this regulation is a part of the federal regulations authorizing special counsels. It expands a special counsel's jurisdiction to crimes such as perjury or obstruction of justice that interfere with his original named responsibility. As a legal matter, grand juries like the one Mueller is reported to have impaneled in Washington, D.C. to assist him in his investigation have incredibly broad subpoena powers to investigate virtually any crime under their geographic jurisdiction. This is why grand juries are such a powerful tool for prosecutors to conduct investigations. While as formal matter, the grand jury issues subpoenas and calls witnesses on its own authority, in reality they act almost exclusively on the advice of the prosecutor who convenes them, in this case Mueller. The fact that such wide-reaching subpoenas are being issued, even if legally permissible, indicates that Mueller may have left his original mission behind in the search for indictable crimes. If Mueller does overstep the bounds of his commission, it would fall to the DOJ official who appointed Mueller and oversees him in the special counsel role, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, to recognize that occurrence and take steps to refocus the investigation. It shows that the Democrats are just absolutely determined to find something somewhere on somebody that will serve their political purpose. Mueller is going hog wild, apparently, and is investigating the tenant list related to the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. Wow. Yeah. That should be exciting. All right, let's take a break, and I'll be back after a minute or so. We'll see if anything has progressed in the Moscow Miss Universe pageant in the meantime.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, August 5th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, 6th month and 14th day on the on the holy calendar. Sorry, and I was just looking at this article. Danish Queen's husband refuses to be buried with her. Find out what that's about. The husband of Denmark's Queen Margaret is so fed up with what he sees as unequal treatment that he has rejected a royal burial spot next to his wife. Prince Henrik, 83, has been married to the Dutch royal for 50 years, gaining the title Prince Consort. But he has always craved the title of king and equal treatment to his wife, the New York Times reports. The royal authorities announced this week that in protest, Henrik has decided not to be buried alongside his wife in a custom-made glass sarcophagus to be installed at the country's Roskilde Cathedral. The AP notes the cathedral has been the final resting place of Danish royals since 1559. Henrik, a French-born diplomat formerly known as Count Henry de la Borde, will be buried at another location in Denmark. It is no secret that the prince for many years has been unhappy with his role and the title he has been awarded in the Danish monarchy, the Royal Danish House's Director of Communication says. For the prince, the decision not to be buried beside the queen is the natural consequence of not having been treated equally to his spouse. The practice of not making him king, however, is in line with that of other European royal families, including Britain's. Henrik, who fathered 2 sons with the queen, retired from public duties last year, the BBC reports. Queen Marguerite, who became the country's first female monarch in centuries after the constitution was changed in 1953, has reportedly accepted the decision. Poor guy. I guess for people in those monarchies and stuff, the title is basically all they have. So that really, they live or die by the title. We don't do that, do we? No, none of us do that. I'm joking. A lot of people do that. Titles are important to a lot of people, but you know what? It's not important to God. It's not important to God at all, especially titles that come from the fallen world. I mean, titles like National Messiah, title, for example, that is an important title because Father gave that title to people, and people who have that title really need to preserve that and to fulfill the duties and the responsibilities of that title. Some people, one person asked in a Q&A session, are the National Messiah appointments still effective? Of course they're still effective. If Father gave you a mission, then that mission is effective, and nothing changed after Father's passing, his ascension. Let's look at this article. From politics to case studies in frustration and victory. This is in a Breitbart. In parts 1 and 2 of this series, we looked at the Republican repeal and replace effort as a case study of frustration. Let me push the cough button here. Yes, it worked. Thank you. In parts 1 and 2 of this series, we looked at the Republican repeal and replace effort as a case study in frustration. As we have seen, the GOP's persistence, this is by James P. Pinkerton, in the face of overwhelming opposition was impressive. Yet, as we have also seen, persistence does not always translate into victory. Indeed, if we look beyond politics to most extreme example of massed persistence, World War I's Battle of Passchendaele a century ago, we might gain insight into the value of adjusting one's strategy in the face of heavy fire. And in fact, as we shall see, disaster in the short run can sometimes sow the seeds of long-term success. In the meantime, today's Republicans are learning to make the necessary adjustment, and of course, the only incoming rounds they face are figurative. Happily, nobody's getting killed. Indeed, except the people who are being killed by Obamacare. Indeed, the GOP might be getting back on the political offensive. Just on Wednesday at the White House, President Trump, flanked by U.S. Senators Tom Cotton and David Perdue, opened up a new front. Together they announced an ambitious immigration reform bill aimed at boosting American workers' wages. So yes, already the GOP is recovering. It is launching a coordinated new offensive aimed at a new target. It is not simply flailing away at the old target. On Capitol Hill, too, it's evident that most Republicans have decided to move on, as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said in the wee hours of July 28th when the GOP health care bill failed. That same day, political quoted conservative tax activist Rayan Ellis, I think everyone is eager to pivot from the health care quagmire. Indeed, since then, Capitol Hill Republicans have been doing just that, pivoting. In August, one headline in the New York Times practically shouted that message. Republicans in Congress bypassed Trump to shore up health care law. The article quoted Senator Lamar Alexander, chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, who had voted with McConnell but has now adjusted himself to the new reality. Any solution that Congress passes for a 2018 stabilization package would need to be a small, bipartisan, and balanced. In other words, after Republicans threw long, incomplete passes on Obamacare, they are now trying a more cautious ground game. Needless to say, Republican lawmakers aren't happy about this shift in the game plan, yet they know that they still have their jobs to do for the sake of the survival of their majority. They have to put points on the board, and that's what solid team play is all about. For instance, Representative Jack Reed, Republican of New York, who back in May voted aye on the House version of the GOP bill, is now seeking to hammer out a bipartisan compromise on health care, however temporary. Reed conceded, many in our party don't want us to do this. Indeed, the New York Salon added, many of us still retain our philosophical opposition and substantive opposition to the Affordable Care Act. Yet sometimes, Reed continued, one must do what's needed, even if it's distasteful. As he put it, it's clear that what we have to do is come together, find that common ground, and govern for the American people. To be sure, the GOP came to this new limited objective strategy the hard way, by taking hard hits on its original bold Obamacare plan. According to Gallup, President Trump's approval rating has fallen. It's now just 36%, with 60% disapproving. Other polls, including Rasmussen, show similar numbers. Indeed, as polling pundit Ron observes, the damage extends beyond the White House. According to the latest survey data, public approval of Obamacare stands at 50%, with just 43% disapproving. Meanwhile, by a 43 to 27 margin, people trust Democrats more than Republicans on health care. So that's a lot of damage to the GOP brand. Yet at the same time, Faucheux notes that a whooping 73% of Americans agree that the healthcare system, quote, needs fundamental changes, unquote, or, quote, needs to be completely rebuilt, unquote. So obviously, at least in the long term, there's a political market for substantial healthcare reform. Yet still, there's not much of a market in the near term. We might consider, for instance, the efforts of Republican Senators Bill Cassidy of Louisiana and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. They are still seeking ways even now to repeal and replace. For their trouble, on August 1, they were greeted with a harsh headline in Politico: newest GOP healthcare attempt faces some tough odds. The two lawmakers are both savvy Poles. They are acutely aware of the obstacles that past efforts have faced, both on the right as well as the left. And yet savvy awareness doesn't necessarily mean that they have found a way to square the healthcare circle. As Politico put it, the so-called Graham-Cassidy plan would still force deep health spending cuts, as well as set new limits that would end Medicaid's open-ended entitlement status and threaten subsidies designed to help people afford coverage. Each element could raise objections from moderate GOP senators. That comes on top of keeping nearly all of Obamacare's taxes, a likely deal breaker for conservatives still intent on scrapping the entire law. So that was from the quote from the Politico. In other words, repeal and replacers shouldn't get their hopes up. In fact, by now it should be evident that if Republicans wish to score a new breakthrough against the Obamacare status quo, they will need to do more than just keep trying the same old thing. That is, they will have to think anew and come up with something fresh. And sometimes a look back at history can help. And so then he goes into the World War I situation. Well, so Obamacare repeal and replace is history, basically. We're stuck with it. We're stuck with the taxes. We're stuck with the penalties. Trump needs to start putting points on the board. Yeah. Needs to start, and the GOP in general. Otherwise, next year's election is going to be very, very tough, very, very tough. And if he loses the majority in the House, it'll become even more difficult for him to get anything done. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the King's Report on Saturday, August 5th, 2017. We've come to the end of our broadcast here in Northeast Pennsylvania. This is going to be a weekend with some cooler temperatures from the past week, with thunderstorms coming through now and again. But it should be a fairly nice weekend to get out. Just make sure that you are prepared for rain, and but enjoy God's nature, and exercise dominion over it in the way that God would want you to. Not in the way that Al Gore would, but the way that God would want you to. All right, God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.